Hello again for another episode of Wake Up and Dream. I am Kelly and I'm here with my favorite gals, Lisa and Sarah. And we've got kind of a fun little episode today, kind of a first time. We have a question from one of our avid listeners who messaged me, and I encourage any listener that's following us on our Instagram page, which is Wake Up and Dream Podcast, if you have a question, if you are wondering about, something that we mentioned in a previous podcast, or this question was, how do you come up with what you talk about on all your episodes? And when we first started, it was all about quotes. And then we kind of switched in sort of a teaching sort of routine. And now we're kind of exploring what's next, what's new for us here at Wake Up and Dream. And so I answered this question back. And then I asked her, well, did you have any ideas? Do you have a question that you want us to cover? And so she responded. This listener of ours is recently given her 2-week notice at a job that she's been in over 10 years, I believe. And she's about to start a new...
to her.
Yes, right? She is stepping out of her comfort zone and knowing that it's time to move on to something bigger and better. That's more aligned, yes, with her heart and her soul. But she's also wondering, so her actual question was how to start over in a new position without bringing those past habits, those toxic habits, into the new job. So I feel like this is a great question because sometimes that is why we leave our jobs, right? It may be not a healthy environment for us and we know it's not serving us anymore, but it's been a routine. It's been a bad habit or just your survival mode is kind of what I feel like. And what I'm gaining from her a little bit as we conversed in Messenger a little bit. And it's a great question. It's a struggle. It's something that she's going to have to, I think, daily be very in tune with herself and how she's feeling. But I know we've kind of talked about this a little bit, the three of us before, is it has to be intentional. And then you also have to start envisioning what you want this new position to look and feel like for you so that you're not carrying this baggage forward. So we're going to expand a little bit on that today about envisioning what you want your new life to be. But I'd also like to jump in with Sarah and Lisa here and get their little nuggets too, as well. Maybe some good advice for our listener here.
Well, so, I want to hear from Sarah because you are
that's what I was thinking.
Classic example. Like I'm like go girl.
Listening to you, Kelly, and I'm like, this was me a year ago, like a year almost to the day. So I'm like, I feel you. I'm so glad that this listener reached out for support in this area because it was a struggle for me on how to do the same, and it's very recent for me. So when I was switching gears and I'm going to just speak from my experiences, some things this listener might be able to latch onto, others might not resonate. So it really is a personal journey and how you handle this type of thing. I was in my previous role for 12 years. So there were a lot of habits, a lot of, just comforts within that. And it was a struggle to even make the decision to start looking and decision to start making this change. It was huge. There was a lot of internal struggle happening during that time. But then when I finally, got an offer, made the decision to officially leave, I did exactly what you said, Kelly, which is I journaled about it and I wrote down like, how do I envision this partnership going? A lot of what came up for me during this time was like imposter syndrome, which we've talked about in the past, but it was like, am I qualified? Like what, I feel like I got so comfortable and I was so good at this other job, but like translating those skills to a new industry or a new company with new people, new relationships, it's scary. And you start to question a lot of things, at least in my case, I did. And it kind of like brought me down because I was in this negative space of like, the what ifs, like, well, what if I don't know what I'm doing? And what if I don't learn as fast as they expect me to learn? So I took all of those questions, all of those worries, all of those concerns that I was having alongside all of the things that I didn't really love about the last job, the things that I kind of got in a rut on, and I put them on paper. And I started by, in the mornings, in my morning work, I actually started just crafting my role at, SM2. And I kind of went through all of what I was going to create while I was there. Now, this was before, I actually think I started doing this exercise before I even got an offer. Because I just
I remember that. Don't you remember that, Kelly? Like
she was like,
this job is mine. like it was so cool because you had done the inner work, Sarah. I mean, that's the biggest thing is you had spent time crafting you at this new job and what it would feel like, what you can bring, your energy that you were able to, you were planning on bringing, but you were already in your mind space and your heart space. You were already there and we could see it. It was
100%. And the cool thing about this exercise and just this ability to go from one job to another, nobody knows you at this new job. You show up with that confidence and with that, like, this is what I want to do. This is who I am. And this was work that had to be done for me going into this role because I put on paper how I wanted to show up. You show up and nobody knows anything about you. They just know that this girl crushed her interview. It looks great on paper, showed up and owned it. When we met with her, we're super excited to hire her. They don't know anything else. They don't know if you messed up one project 2 years ago. It's a completely blank slate. So you get to design and create who you are in that new role. It's a really cool, it's a scary experience because again, battling with the imposter syndrome is real, but that's all in your head. That's all an internal struggle. Externally, people are looking at you like you are exactly what we need in this company, in this role. And we're excited to work with you. And you have to kind of just build on what you're, giving off to this new company versus what the internal struggles that you're having. And I feel like writing things down during this time was completely game changing for me.
I love that, Sarah, because I feel like, did you write down these things every single day to remind yourself? Did you add things to your list? Did you, just read your list? What was something that you probably did every single day to remind yourself that you are worthy of this position? You've got skills to bring to this company and you're just going to rock it, all in because you're amazing. So what was kind of your daily routine with that leading up to, and then maybe even going into the position and getting started?
I love this question because I feel like with consistency, it's always been a struggle for me in all of the things, but I was very consistent in this piece. And what I did was I created almost like a goal. Like, what is my goal for this new company? A short one-liner goal that was Sarah will go into this new company. I'm so happy and grateful. I will go into this new company, XYZ. And I would say that and write that every single day. But what I also did was I crafted a story about my first 3 months, what that looks like, the things that I would learn, the things that I would bring to the table. And that was kind of it was just kind of building upon it. So, mornings sometimes are rushed and, you can only get so much time to do some of this work, especially when my kids are early risers. So the one constant would be me writing that one statement, that one goal for what this looked like for me every single day and reading that. And being that, feeling it. Feeling is the secret after all. But then
showing up as her every single day, believing that about yourself.
Again, nobody knows you're here. Nobody knows you're here. You just show up as that person and you believe it because you're writing it over and over and over again. That is just you. It's who you are. The story was more of an evolving thing over time that I was this is kind of what the first week was going to look like and what I was doing and how I was starting to form these relationships with the development team and the other project managers and all of this. I wrote those things out over time on how that was going to look. But having a statement that you just repeat, write on your mirror. You can take those dry erase markers and write it on your mirror, the weeks leading up to starting this new role, and just show up. Don't even worry. It's not even about worrying about the past habits that you had at this new job. It's really just about defining who you want to be in the new job. Like the old job is history, you know?
Right, exactly. So I'm curious. Okay, so you've been just amazed. Kelly and I are amazed. Amazed. I mean, when I look back at that chapter of your life, I'm just totally like, I admire you so much for the inner work that we saw you do, and we saw the transformation that was happening inside of you. And I love that you're like, I mean, I remember you saying, "This is so new, and this is like, like, am I going to be able to do it? And what are their expectations?" And those are like real fears that can actually sideswipe you and derail your confidence, derail, like that inner work. But I'm curious, you did the inner work, you journaled, you envisioned, you crafted your story of future memories that you were going to, see played out within your job place. What role, if any, did your support system play, your outward world, friends, family? Like, what voices did you have to shut down? What voices did you choose to welcome? Like, just the community of during that transition.
Yeah, so I actually was very careful with who I let in during this period of time. This transition, not only for me personally, and again, I don't know how this relates to this particular listener's question and what her circumstance is, but for me, it was a really, really big change. It was a change in industry, change slightly in role, a different kind of. I had to form different relationships in this role versus my previous role in terms of like external relationship building, whereas my previous role was more internal facing. And then additionally, I had to take a pay cut with this new role, which was a very big challenge and which a lot of people did not understand. I did work on the negotiations in terms of salary myself, which was a learning experience in and of itself. But I feel like the people that I let in to this whole experience, I knew that I could trust, and I knew that they would support my decision to make the change that was best for my well-being, my mental health, my family at the time. Like all of these things that were factors in this relationship more so than the bottom line. I could have stayed unhappy in my old, and I didn't hate my old job. I was there for 12 years. I loved the people I worked with. It was time for a change. But making a change is hard. Making a change that you're worried about, like how it's impacting your family's day to day and ability to like pay the bills and all of that, it just adds another layer. So in terms of support, I found a lot of support in you guys, in a couple of my close friends, and trusted family members. But I did keep a lot of it just close. And again, it was just me designing how I want this to look and how I want this to go. I'm going to close that gap within my salary. It's not an issue, whether it's coming from other places or anything else. Like that was a non-issue for me. I didn't want to share this kind of whole picture with other people that might not feel that, because that's not serving me then. If people are going to be like, oh, you had to do this, you had to do that. Why would you do that? How is your family going to like, I don't need any of that. So it was just really keeping, like, you guys were huge, as you know, because I talk to you guys every week.
Well, and I think staying aware, Sarah, I am in awe, like Lisa, of course, like you keeping that in perspective and knowing what was best for you and your family, even though there was the pay cut, like that wasn't the most important thing for you. And maybe for our listener too, to, really think about why she's moving. Why is this such a good change for her, and how it's going to improve her well-being every single day, even though it might be that little paradigm or the imposter syndrome. I think that was a really good point to make earlier, because that does creep in, right? But you have to remind yourself how important it is to know why you've made this decision and how it's going to change your life for the better in the time to come. There's going to be some adjustments. And I love the word that you used is learn, that give yourself grace to learn this new position, to create those new relationships. But you're in control of that. You were in complete control of that, Sarah. And I'm going to put that out there to our listeners. Like, you are in control of your life and what you want for yourself and for your family and what you want your life to look like. You don't have to live in default. Like, you can design what you want it to look like. And I think remembering every single day, like you said, writing it down, envisioning it, writing it on your mirror, that's totally speaking my language. Having the reminders is huge in creating that for what's to come, what you want it to look like.
Totally agree. Writing it on your mirror, like, that is so fun. Giving yourself a high five. I love the quote that says, courage precedes confidence. And it takes courage to step out into a new job, to step out into, envisioning yourself in this role. It takes a ton of courage. But ultimately, what do we want? We want to feel confident in our own skin. We want to feel confident in the role that we're going to. We want to feel confident in, our abilities to add value to the company, all of that. And it starts with courage on the inside. And Sarah, your explanation of all the things that you did, it was the inner work. It was the key component to you having confidence and shutting down the imposter syndrome, because it doesn't go away. It doesn't ever go away. Regardless of how successful you are, we still battle that imposter syndrome, that we're not worthy, that we're not going to, make the cut. What are people thinking of us? All the things, that's always going to be there. But you doing that inner work, and I love you just being gut honest that you really were very intentional about the circle of people that you let in during that time. And I would say that is so key to making that transition and giving you the courage, right? You want to make sure that the voices that you're listening to are benefiting you and serving you. So kudos to you, Sarah.
And it's interesting, that point on like who to let in, because if, you have this internal struggle, internal battle on like the pros and cons, even if you don't write it out, but like you have these things like this, there's negative thoughts going around in a big decision like this. And if you are fueling the fire with people with negative thoughts that are validating these thoughts in your head that you're creating, like, that's not helpful at all. So it's really, I feel like that community and, who you let in, it's really important. You want to be successful in this new role. You need to make sure you have positivity around you, and those people are supporting the positive side of all the thoughts happening. It's necessary. One thing I will say, and then we can close, but while I did struggle, while I did come through and to you guys, it seemed like I crushed it on all angles, there were a lot of struggles that happened, a lot of and that was kind of where the inner work came. But there were days that I was just like shutting down, watching Schitt's Creek on repeat, like figuring out like, is this really what I want? And Bob Proctor calls it the terror barrier. And I like hit up against the terror barrier hard during this transition, but I didn't stay there. And I feel like that's the thing, like all of the tools that I used that ended up propelling me through to this new job and having me be successful in this new job and leaving the old paradigms behind, all of those tools helped, but it was there. Like, I recognized, I appreciated the fact that I hit up against this terror barrier. I allowed it. I allowed me to have some of that time where I just needed to like turn my brain off. Let me put on Schitt's Creek or Modern Family or whatever it was, and just take a minute. So, it's definitely a work. It's definitely work to get to this point. So I don't want you to feel discouraged if you're like, oh, wow, why can't I just like go and do this that Sarah did? Like it wasn't a linear thing. It was definitely, there were ups and downs that got me to the other side. So I just encourage you, even if you do hit some of these points in time when you're feeling like, especially hard on yourself, imposter syndrome's creeping up, or you just don't feel motivated because you're scared and you're not sure if you made the right decision or if you're making the right decision, or if you're worried that some of these things are going to come into your new role, all of those things will come up. It's really about how you move through them that matters. So I would love to continue this discussion. Please join our Facebook group. We will continue the discussion. I'm sure there's many of you here that have encountered, even if it's not just related to a new job, just hitting the terror barrier in general. I feel like there's a lot of parallels in how you can get through it. That's super helpful. So maybe if we could share in our Facebook group a few ways to get through the terror barrier once you're up against it. And to our listener who came through with this question, I hope that this was super helpful. I encourage you to create and design this new role. Don't focus on what happened previously. Just be forward-looking and create how you want this new role to work for you and how you will show up. So I'm so thankful for all of you for joining in. Thank you to Lisa and Kelly for getting me through that tough time last year. And I'm so thankful that I'm able to help and inspire others along the way as well. That's why we're all here. Thank you, ladies. So until next time, I encourage each and every one of you to wake up and dream.